Yes, Kate, we're recording.
Thank you, Kevin. Sorry.
Good. Thank you, Kate, and welcome to everybody. And it's nice to be able to embrace each other across the time zones, and wonderful to be on this journey with you. We decided some time ago that it would be good to do a new series of introductory talks, not because there's anything new, but because it's always new in a sense. And it's always good to refresh and renew the language and the metaphors and the way we describe meditation. It doesn't make the previous introductions out of date, but I think it adds to making it more contemporary. That's why we're doing this. And in this talk, we're going to look at how we journey. What is the journey? And and next week will be the main theme. But we'll begin with the talk, and we'll then meditate, and then have some interactions and questions and chat. When I got my first bicycle, I was so excited that I'd been longing for it. I jumped on it. My brother was trying to show me how to keep my balance, but I just shot off on my own and drove straight into a lamppost and knocked myself out. So that wasn't the best way to begin learning to ride a bike. But on the other hand, when we learn anything at the beginning, we must experience failure or what seems like failure. And we learn through making mistakes. We learn to do better by accepting that we are not perfect. So like boiling an egg or riding a bike and other simple things, we only really learn to do them by doing it. We learn how by doing it with practice. The most important thing to get clear when you are beginning to meditate is how to meditate. And because it's so simple, you can write it on the back of a stamp. Because it is so simple, you might think, oh, I got it. I know what it is. But actually, it is simple, but also very deep and very subtle. And that's why we need to keep coming back to the how to meditate, because the how takes us into the why and where it is taking us. Twice a day, morning and evening, may seem a big commitment, but in a short time, if you give it a chance, and you start off by being regular, you'll discover that it's actually adds time to your day rather than subtracting from it. Time is a very mental idea. Time is something that varies according to where we are and whether we're enjoying what we're doing and so on. And so the reason that meditation helps to deal with stress is because it helps us to deal with our idea of time or how we relate to time. And there's no way of describing this except to invite you to discover it, that when you do give time to meditate, you not only get it back, but you get more back because time seems to expand. Try it anyway. You are also mentally and emotionally clearer and calmer. And maybe this is also why we have more time. We waste less time. It's amazing, even however busy you are, how much time we can waste in useless or unimportant things. and therefore you can become more single-minded, more decisive, and more clear about what you're going to do. Anytime you spend developing this habit of meditation, it's a life-changing habit, an enriching habit. Anytime you spend developing this habit is a good investment. It takes discipline, but everything that is important in life, it takes discipline. If you want to learn a language or learn to play the piano, learn to speak a language, it takes discipline. It takes discipline, but meditating with others on a regular basis will make it easier to develop that discipline. Just going to close the window here. It's a bit noisy, I think. The noise has just stopped. After the how comes the why. Why do we meditate? When the first climber to scale Mount Everest was asked why he climbed it, he said, because it was there. John Main said that we meditate because we are meant to meditate. This is how we're designed. It's natural for us. So today and next week, I'd like to explore this question further from the perspective of what happens when we start the journey. There's a story of how 4 fishermen began to be disciples. They were washing their nets as Jesus was talking to a large crowd on the lakeshore. He asked Peter if he could get into his boat and push out a little to be better heard by the crowd on the shore. After he'd finished, he told Peter, "Put out into deep water and throw out your nets." Peter replied, "Well, we've been fishing all night and we haven't caught anything." But anyway, he did as Jesus said. When they pulled them in, their nets were filled with so many fish, the nets almost broke. Now, this might seem a magical way for Jesus to remunerate them for the loan of the boat while he was using it. But it also tells us something about life as a spiritual journey and about meditation as a journey within the journey that shows what life is really about and for, why we are here. The fishermen must have felt depressed by the failure of their long night's work. But because they trusted in the connection, the personal connection that they felt with this person to them at that moment, this unknown teacher on the lakeshore, because they trusted in that connection, something happened. Their fortunes turned round. Success and failure. The wheel of fortune, good and bad luck. But this is this alternation of opposites just what life is about? Is it just about good days and bad days? And at what depth can success and failure, good and bad meditations, actually meet? So that we're not tossed from one to the other, looking for success and fearing failure, but we're somehow in a point of unity. This is really where meditation is taking us. And that's why we need to think of meditation not in terms of success and failure, but in terms of connection. The connection that those fishermen felt and trusted. If it were just, if life were just this bouncing back between good and bad luck, then meditation would be a matter of luck. A good meditation today, a bad meditation tomorrow. But the important word in the story is put out into deep water. As I've been trying to say in these talks, meditation is about depth, seeing behind the surface of life, behind the triviality. So much of our life is just spent skimming the surface, skimming the headlines, looking at 30-second video clips, very short term, very short depth. But it should be about living from authentic depth within. Meditation is about depth. And because it is the beginning of a life journey when we meditate, a steady, daily life journey, of course, there will be ups and downs because life does have ups and downs. I once met with a group of 12th grade Australian boys in a school who'd been meditating for a few years. And they'd been taught to meditate by a teacher that they greatly respected and liked. And you could feel this close connection between them. They told me how grateful they were that they had been introduced to meditation so early in their life. They could see that friends of their age who did not meditate seemed less able to handle the ups and downs, the extremes of their lives, especially, of course, in adolescence. So they introduced meditation to their friends. And they thought, oh, this is cool. This is good. It feels good. And meditating together felt good to them. And they were not in the least embarrassed to meditate openly during the lunch break under a tree or when they hung out at each other's homes. They understood meditation as a life element, not as something you have to add on, but something that is already present within us. That, as John Main said, meditation is natural, but we have to discover that it's natural. And when we do, we can meditate. They had also learned that keeping meditating, whether you felt that a particular session went well or was a waste of time, had an impact on how they handled their internal moods and outer swings of fortune. This is so important for the mental health of young people today, and indeed the mental health. Can somebody and how it's so important for mental health today, but also so important for our whole culture, which is veering to extremes all the time. The practice of meditation itself teaches us that it is a direct and a simple way of self-transcendence. That means we don't have to be mastered by our own volatile reactions to disappointments or betrayals. This is a basic element in learning to be happy and peaceful, even in the face of the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as Shakespeare called it, that life can throw at us. It is discovery of our potential, our full human potential, a journey into self-knowledge and self-acceptance. This self-acceptance brings psychological health and reality, and it's also known as humility. Every time we meditate, we begin again from where we are, and this means meditation can never become just a habit or an addiction or a routine. It cuts down on the amount of time that we spend living on automatic pilot or generally sleepwalking through life. It wakes you up. To keep the practice fresh, refresh it regularly with a retreat, for example, by listening to teaching and especially by meditating with others. And this continual refreshment will help you go out into the deep water while keeping faithful to the simplicity of the mantra. Something then happens, and you get a big catch. God becomes less of an idea and more of an experience, more of a personal reality. With inner freedom, peace, creativity, stability, and hope, there also comes a sense of indescribable goodness and benevolence. And this replaces the anxiety, the suspiciousness, uh, the the way we question people negatively that is so prevalent and so isolating in today's very stressful culture. The concepts of failure and success have a deep, strong grip on us, but they diminish with the practice of meditation. Because we learn that failure does not need to make us ashamed or reject ourselves or feel bad, but that when it is accepted, failure leads to growth and expansion. We learn something, and no obsession with success, no fantasy of success can match that. This is the faith I've been talking about during these talks, and which saying the mantra faithfully will teach you through your own experience. Everything I'm saying has to be tested in your own experience. Life for a meditator is not only stressed and is not only less stressed and less fearful, it is more interesting and surprising and wonderful. We begin to rediscover the child's capacity for wonder. The Danish writer Søren Kierkegaard called faith a leap into paradox. Paradox is what seems nonsense or seems a contradiction. It's the apparent, it's the fear of living in an either-or world, and where we're in constant conflict and having to make constant decisions between black and white and so on. But this has changed as we leap into paradox, into living in the primal energy of wholeness. I spoke about that last week, about language. There's a unity in language, even between words that are apparent opposites. They have a common root. So we're not taking polarized positions, but we are uniting opposites. And that is what brings us into God, because God is the union of opposites. And this happens in us, not in our heads, but in our hearts. St. Paul, I'm giving a talk on St. Paul this evening. St. Paul is an inspiring man of faith, but he probably wouldn't have been the best person to go on holiday with. He was probably a little bit too intense. When he arrived in Athens, he was revolted at the idolatry of the people. And he went straight to the places where philosophical and religious debates were held in public. People held public debates and conversations in those days. He went into what you could call was a kind of religious supermarket of the gods, much like our own world's spirituality markets and marketing. Paul told them that he had seen there an altar to the unknown God, because the Greeks were always discovering new things. So they said, well, there must be an unknown God as well. And this, he said, was the God that he wanted to tell them about, the God they had not yet fully met. With meditation, we meet this unknown God. We come to know the unknown God. And with meditation, God becomes a living mystery, a loving mystery, always beyond our understanding, but always present. Many people today struggle with a commitment to a partner for life, whom they can look in the eye in front of others, maybe in a church, and say, I take you to be my wedded wife or husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, in all the opposites of life, to love and to cherish until death do us part. And thereto I pledge to you my faith. Those are very powerful words. If you think about what you're saying and if you've prepared and if they are meaningful for you. But today, very often, people want to be free. They want to keep their options open in case things go wrong. Yet, they then feel incomplete in their loneliness or in conditional relationships, short-term relationships. And they continue hoping and looking for the faithfulness that allows love to survive their ups and downs. Meditation takes us into this whole process. Meditation is a way of faith. And every time we meditate, whatever it may feel like, we are doing something loving. Beginning and learning, then, is not about willpower, like sticking to a diet or keeping to an exercise schedule. It's more like immersing yourself in a deep inner truth and reality. And the deeper we immerse ourselves, the more free we are from fantasy and fear, the more real we become. And this makes us feel increasingly more real in all our encounters and our work, because it is a discovery of authenticity that changes us. We live in a world of so much imitation, fake news, entertainment, very superficial things. We hunger and search for meaning. We hunger and search for authenticity. The signs of this soon become visible in the most important aspect of our lives, which are, of course, our relationships. Why does it influence all these relationships? Because it works first on our relationship with ourselves. This is the most personal and transforming fruit of meditation. In our relationship, we begin to see other fruits falling into our lap. The fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, fidelity, gentleness, and self-control. And these are the visible signs of the unknown God. These are signs that God is around and God is working. So this is a very personal experience, but of course it calls for verification and interpretation. And this is where the wisdom tradition that we meditate in comes in. Tradition is a community of the dead and the living, and of those yet to be born, in which deep experience is transmitted to unite us to others through understanding ourselves. This is what social media was invented to do, but clearly fails to do, to connect us, not just in audiovisual communication, but in personal communion. That connection that the fishermen felt with the man who told them to cast out into the depths. Without a connecting experience to tradition, a living tradition, we feel like orphans, children who've lost or maybe never knew their parents or their families. We lack a sense of origin, where we come from, and the security of home. Tradition is a living transmission of spiritual intelligence. It is much greater than our individual isolated intelligences or selves. And it helps us to grow from childish arrogance and that adolescent I know it all to mature selflessness and other-centeredness. God is closer to us than we are to ourselves. That's what we come to discover through meditation. God is closer to us than we are to ourselves. We are usually stuck in restlessness, anxiety, or rootlessness, fear, until we find a point of connection and union. Until then, we're locked into chronos, chronological time, tick-tock time, time always running out or dragging us along. The other kind of time and word for time is kairos. This is time that has become transparent to the light of eternity, the perpetual now, the perpetual present. So let us avoid the way of experience where we miss the meaning by integrating meditation into chronological time. That means meditating morning and evening. We intersect with kairos, this transparent time, and life reveals its true colors and meaning. Let's look at the ups and downs of the meditation journey so that the so-called bad meditations don't make us panic or give up diving and swim back to the surface. In fact, if we see the whole journey, we won't make the mistake of calling them good and bad at all. People speak about drug trips as good trips or bad trips. Meditation is not a trip, but it's a pilgrimage. The wisdom tradition of meditation prepares us for the stages of the journey. The Christian mystical tradition, for example, speaks of 3 stages: kenosis, which is emptying; henosis, which is being integrated, unified; and theosis, which is being divinized. We could say detox, healthier living, and reaching full potential, to use contemporary words. 14th century poet Dante Alighieri wrote the Divine Comedy, one of the world's greatest long poems. And he wrote it in 3 parts called Hell, Purgatory, and Paradise. Every human being eventually discovers what these words mean. Meditators have the advantage of living with this understanding throughout their lives. Dante treats hell as an experience of eternal punishment that we earn by or merit by our own karma. This shouldn't be taken literally. But when you are in hell, it feels like it's forever. It feels like the mercy of God has disappeared, will never ever touch us again. Otherwise, it's not hell, it's just a bad day. The difference with purgatory is not the degree of pain, but that in purgatory, we already know that we are going through something, that we're on the journey. We're not locked up, incarcerated forever, which is despair. And we sense that the pain is even healing because it is burning away the past and it is bringing us to true health. So meditation can be seen as a journey through these three stages. But because it's in the spiritual dimension of reality, it is cyclical, not linear. So we tend to go over it again at deeper levels. There's no reason to fear these different levels of meditation because they are real and universal. When we begin to meditate, we may even have a glimpse of paradise and think that we're lucky. Oh, good, I've got a short direct flight straight into paradise. But unless we're already very pure, we will all need some detox. Dante describes it graphically in his 9 circles of hell. 9? Well, don't panic. He describes the kinds of poisons or impurities that we have ingested, that we've taken into ourselves, which have affected us from the past, and that we now have to come to terms with so we can flush them out. I won't go into these different circles of hell, but if you want to look them up, they're in the text. Of course, when we sit to meditate, we won't always be struggling with these kinds of issues. The monks of the Christian desert call them the great obstacles or principal faults. The Buddhists call them negative afflictions. In other words, it isn't all going to be plain sailing. Like everything in life, there are going to be obstacles. Ignorance, attachment, aggression. These are the 3 main poisons in Buddha's philosophy of the inner journey. These have to be faced in ourselves. However, the seeds of anger, lust, or greed, the memory of deceptions or betrayals are in us and present, often repressed in our memory banks. Next week, I'll offer another map of the journey, which takes us through these levels of consciousness. And it will show that most of the work of purification, of liberation, is not traumatic. It's just quiet, deep, gentle, in fact. It happens in the unconscious, out of sight. But sometimes old relationships or fears may bubble up into consciousness, and then you'll have to deal with them or integrate them. Meditation brings things out of the shadows. There's nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, Jesus said, and nothing concealed that will not be known. Meditation is purifying, liberating, and illuminating. It restores us to what the Desert Fathers called apatheia, or health of soul. And this healing is within the process of self-knowledge, which brings us into the knowledge of the unknown God, of the true God, not our fantasy image, but the real God. St. Augustine believed that self-knowledge is an indispensable foundation for knowing God. John Main often quoted him when he described meditation as a way to be reintegrated with ourselves. John Main said, a person must first be restored to themselves so that making of themselves, as it were, a stepping stone, we might rise from there to God. It is deeply therapeutic, but it's not a talking therapy. It's a silent therapy. The time of meditation is not the time for looking through the photograph albums of our lives or analyzing our memories. It is the time for that deeper healing and integration achieved in the power of silence. In his ascent from hell into purgatory, Dante imagines all the sufferings and pains, which are often quite shocking. But then we pass through these and move into the goal of life and the ultimate aim of meditation, which is described in the most beautiful and moving way in Dante's vision of the journey through paradise towards the beatific vision, that is the union of all human beings with God and all the cosmos in love. So in this sublime poem, we see a kind of a map of meditation. We see the human being as a pilgrim, being led from an encounter with the shadow side of reality and ourselves, and then through our own egos and complexities into our essential goodness. In paradise, we discover that we are good. So I'll conclude there. There's more in the text about paradise, but I wanted to just to give you that sense that we are on this journey, that in many different wisdom traditions, this journey is described in ways that we can relate to from our own experience. Gregory of Nyssa, a 5th century Christian teacher, was the first thinker to describe the truth that there are infinite series of perfections. He seems to be the first person to grasp that the truth is, and perfection is never finalized. You never arrive at a destination. It's always expanding. To seek God is to find God, he said, but to find God is to be propelled into a new search, repeated eternally. For the perfection of human nature, he said, the perfection of human nature consists in its very growth in goodness. So, in many sources of wisdom, we are encouraged to begin this journey. Meditation leaves an impression on us and our lives. And saying the mantra melts the ice in the heart that resists the fire of love. The fire of love that we find in the unknown God beyond thought, beyond words, even the beautiful words of Dante. Meditators often say that they meditate because it releases in them an experience of meaning and purpose in their lives. We might not describe it as Dante did, but the essential elements are the same. Meditation opens us to the primacy of love. I said before that to begin to meditate, we only really need to start from where we are each time. Therefore, we don't need actually religious or non-religious belief necessary to begin, except a fundamental faith in our own humanity. Faith in a particular wisdom tradition is certainly an advantage. It helps us to meditate. But meditation, in a way, transcends all external beliefs and takes us to the core truth of things. The experience at the end is universal. Daily meditation teaches us what our own goodness means, and it gives us even now a taste of what we are created for. So let's take our time to meditate now. I'll remind you again of the very simple teaching. Sit with your back straight. Relax your shoulders, relax the muscles of your face. Close your eyes lightly. Just be aware of your breath for a few cycles of your breath. Let go of words, let go of problems, let go of chronos, worrying about time. Enter into kairos, where time is filled with the light of the Spirit. And to help us to do this now, we take our mantra and we begin to repeat our word gently, faithfully, and simply. The word again I would recommend is Maranatha. Ma-ra-na-tha. So we'll meditate now and then have some conversation afterwards. Ma-ra-na-tha. Do we have the bell?
You are muted, Laurence. We are not able to hear you. I'll see if I can fix it from here. I cannot unmute you. I can only ask you to unmute.
I've set the security settings now that you can unmute, Laurence.
No,
There we
there's
go.
no.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
This tradition of meditation that we follow is universal, but it's deeply rooted in the Christian tradition. And one of the early teachers of this way of the mantra in Christianity was John Cassian. And this is something John Cassian wrote 1500 years ago about the mantra. Repeat the mantra faithfully. The mantra will then always be in your heart. When you go to sleep, say the mantra. You'll find maybe that when you wake up in the morning, the mantra is sounding in your heart. And throughout the day, it is silently repeating itself in the recesses of the heart. This is one of the beautiful fruits of meditation, is that the mantra gently, naturally becomes part of you, roots itself in your heart, and it connects you continuously to the love, the joy, and the peace of the Spirit that is flowing in your heart at all times. It's like a bridge that you only have to say the mantra, or listen to the mantra, and you are connected to that source of peace. So it's a wonderful gift for life and for the whole journey of life. Good. Well, I'd like to invite you now to raise any thoughts or share any comments or raise any questions that you'd like to raise. You can put them on the chat, of course, as well, or raise your hand.
So we have a couple of questions already, Brother
Okay.
Laurence.
I'll hand it over to you, Kate. You pass them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we teach people suffering from schizophrenia to meditate? If yes, how do we initiate them into meditation when they hallucinate often?
Well, we've had several seminars over the years on meditation and mental health with psychiatrists, psychologists, and professionals in mental health. And the universal feeling is that we can introduce meditation to people with different kinds of mental illness. You just have to allow them to meditate as they can. And so the basic answer is yes. But when you have a question of psychosis, then that's a little different, of course. So probably somebody who's actively having psychotic moments it's not the best time for them to start meditating. If it's under control through medication, then we find that people can meditate according to their capacity, and it has a beneficial healing effect on them. So I would probably try to not introduce people who are having psychotic breaks to meditation, because that could make it worse for them. But when it's under control, then meditation could be very helpful.
Thank you. Are there any Bible references that we can refer to in relation to meditation?
Pretty much the whole Bible, actually. I've just been reading St. Paul all day today, and there's so many passages in St. Paul speak from the same experience that we enter into in meditation, and describe the way that we make this inner journey of faith. So if you look at any of the books by John Main or others or myself, you will find passages where we take a quotation, a passage from Scripture, and show how it can be understood in the light of meditation. I think any of the parables of Jesus could also be read in this way. For example, the very short parable, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who takes a seed and plants it. And he goes about his normal daily work, but day and night, the seed is growing. How, he does not know. And then in time, the seed begins to show the growth, and then the fruit, and then the seed. So it depends how you approach the scriptures. There's a level of reading scripture which is just superficial. There's another level which is more looking at its moral meaning. But there's a deeper level which we call the mystical or spiritual level. And it's there at that level that, informed by our own experience, the scripture opens up into in a wonderful way that we hadn't imagined it could, that it could have these meanings. But because we are already entering into the experience of it through meditation, we begin to recognize it in the scriptures. So I would take any of those passages.
Thank you. And there's a comment here from Singapore group in St. Vincent de Paul saying, Father, I like your closing remarks, which echoed our Holy Father who visited Singapore recently, and in the interfaith dialogue mentioned that we should not argue over which religion is better. Religion in itself can be a form of distraction. Would that be a fair comment?
I think it is very much, and I think it's interesting that it should be the Pope who is saying that, who is the head of a religious man, who's head of one of the world's largest religions. I think this is a sign for us that religion itself today has to be refreshed, renewed, regenerated, and not a Christianity. Let's just talk about Christianity, but this is true of other religions as well. But let's get our own house in order first. And the way this renewal of religion can happen is by discovering the mystical roots, the origin. Where does religion come from? Where does Christianity come from? From the teaching of Jesus, directly from his heart. It's a transmission. It's a living transmission. As it gets passed on, religion often gets turned into dogma, belief systems, catechisms, rules and regulations. Now, there's a certain value in those, of course, and a need for those even, perhaps, but they are not the goal of religion. And if religion does not open itself to its own mystical, spiritual source, living source, then it becomes counterproductive. It becomes a negative force in the world. And we can see how easily religion can become a way of oppression, a way of attacking other people, a way of justifying inhumane behavior. And this is why religion goes bad. It goes sour if it is not constantly refreshed by this contemplative spirit. And that's why we should be teaching contemplative prayer in every parish, in every school, in every mosque, in every synagogue. And I think unless the religions of the world can meet in this spiritual, mystical source, common source, then they will not be able to collaborate and they will compete. If you don't collaborate, you compete. And that's why this has to be grassroots. And that's why we need leaders, religious leaders like the Pope, to remind us of this. But unfortunately, there aren't always as many of these religious leaders as we need. They become too preoccupied with the institutions, with the numbers, with the finances, with their committees. They become too preoccupied with orthodoxy of belief and wagging their finger at other people, telling them they're not true Catholics or they're not true Buddhist or whatever it may be. And we need to recover the religion of Jesus Christ, or the kind of religion that Jesus manifested, in which is a religion of kindness, of love of neighbor, and of not of judgment and condemnation. And this is vitally important. And the quickest and maybe the only way that we can do that, I think, is to recover, as I say, this contemplative core, this living source of the transmission of the spirit. And that's what we do in meditation and in contemplative practice.
Oh, wonderful. Going to the practice, practically, do we have to keep still, very still, when we meditate? This is from Catherine Lowe.
Thank you, Catherine. Well, sitting still is important. John Main once said that it's the first lesson we take in going beyond desire. You know, you want to scratch your face or shift around. Physical restlessness is a sign of mental restlessness. So by learning to calm the body, to sit in stillness, is a good way of preparing the mind for the calmness that we need to meditate. So it is important, yes, and just but do the best you can. You know, if you're feeling very restless, or some people find it very difficult to sit still. So be patient about it, and don't give up. Do the best you can. But learning to sit still teaches us a great deal, and enables us to go deeper into in stillness of mind. In the Psalms, it says, "Be still and know that I am God." That means that in the stillness of body and mind, a knowledge, the knowledge of God, that's God's knowledge of us as well, rises in us.
It reminds me of the passage, deep calling to deep. That's the deep, I can't remember where that is, but it's that wonderful notion, the deep within us calling to the deep within us, which is God. And
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, Song of
We're,
Songs.
is it from the Psalms? Okay.
Song of Songs, I think.
Okay.
Mm.
So we are now, we're going to wrap up now, I think. I would just like to make sure to comment. Thank you for your sessions, Father Laurence. What resonated with me, Judith, is what you said earlier about the more we seek God, the more we find, the more we find, the more we seek.
Mm. Yes. I think if, there's a terrible hunger for novelty and something new and in our consumer culture. And it's actually causing a lot of damage to the environment. We're always using up our resources, and I think that this hunger for novelty is very dangerous for the world, for the planet, and for our own inner life. And learning to meditate teaches us a surprising truth, which is that the new is always new, is always present. And that the more still we become, the more we enter into this perpetual renewal, where we don't have to seek for novelty because we are being renewed, refreshed continuously. That's the great gift of contemplation, that it renews us. And it's the end of boredom. You're never bored again.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very, very much, Father Laurence. Thank you all. There have been a few questions about specifically about the Asia region, joining groups, setting up groups. So all those are in hand. I know that we'll be connecting offline now with James Lowe in Singapore and the Indonesian communities. So please, anybody has any queries about that, if you email kate@wccm.org, I can just make sure that everybody connects. We want to do all we can to support you in groups, hence having the 4 weeks, which will also be available as a course afterwards for online as well, for you to be able to share with others. So thank you. I wanted just to take a moment actually to tell you about the important meditation session that's happening over the weekend on the 21st and 22nd, and it is the 24-hour meditation for peace. It's happening online and from Bonvo. If you're fortunate enough to be in Bonvo, then you can be there in person. If not, please join online. I will send out some information about that as well. There are some speakers who are going to be starting the day who you won't want to miss. Some wonderful voices from all sides of the conflict in Gaza. So that should be a very, very meaningful and encouraging day, and informative, well, weekend, in fact. Okay, so until then, I wish you all the very, very best. We'll be sending out the recording of this session. And thank you very much. Thanks, Kevin, for putting that up. The session next week is on Thursday, not on Monday. God bless everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks a lot.
you.
Father Laurence.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ting Ting, for your translation. That was really helpful and very welcome. And thank you everyone for joining. We'll be closing the room.
Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you. Good night to all. And thank you for coming.
Can I
Good night.
just ask, when's the next session? It's next Monday, right?
Next session is Thursday,
Thursday,
26th.
26th.
Please.
Yes.
Next session
it's-
is on Thursday, the 26th of September. I've
so
put it on screen share. You can see it on your screen.
Oh,
Please
sorry.
note,
Yeah.
it's not on Monday, it's on Thursday, the
Thursday,
26th.
26th. Yes, I saw it. Yes, thank you.
Yes, I'll
Okay,
keep it
thank
up.
you for-
I'll keep
Yes.
it up on this page until most
Thank
people
you.
have left.
Yes.
Okay, thank
Just
Have a
to
Bye-bye.
make
nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. So one more time for everybody who's still here, just a couple of you. The next session will be on Thursday, the 26th of September. So not on Monday.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Welcome.
See you
Thank you
on
all.
Thursday.
Yes, thank
This
you
is
very
see you
much.
on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.